The pre-draft rumors have already started.
This is Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it's time for the Atlanta Football Party, only on Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Atlanta Football Party, your home for the best Atlanta Falcons talk. It's local insight you can't get anywhere but right here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me are Jarvis Davis, Aaron Freeman, and Tori McElhaney. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. And the Atlanta Football Party is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So today, Make the Case for Mocks is in its final rounds of the draft, and we'll go into that in the deep dive. And did Kirk Cousins nail it or no? We'll talk about it in what's next. But first, let's see if the crew wants to do a final remix of round one. So guys, we got a little bit of, I'll call it, we don't know what to call it yet. Was it smoke and mirrors? Is it something authentic? Is it a little like monkey wrench in what everyone thinks the game plan is? Whatever the case may be, ESPN is reporting that the Falcons are thinking of taking Michael Penix Jr. at 8. So here's a quote from ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, who talked about it on SportsCenter Sunday. The Falcons are certainly a candidate to get a passer at some point in the draft. GM Terry Fontenot, in his first 3 drafts, did not take one in the first 2 rounds, but they spent some time with Michael Penix Jr. This is interesting. When they went to visit him in Seattle in early April, they flew all the way just to watch him throw for a few hours and turned around and went home. Now, number 8 overall, is that too rich for Penix? Maybe, but he's probably not there when they pick 43rd overall in the second round. So Jarvis, I ask you, is this the smoke and mirrors that we expect the week of the draft, or is there a scenario where the Falcons do select Penix, just not at 8?
I think it is smoke and mirrors. I mean, I feel like they do have genuine interest in Michael Penix as a quarterback and what he might be able to bring to the table in a couple of years once I almost said Kirk Cousins. I ain't gonna call him that. I'm not gonna do that. Kirk Cousins. Once that guarantee money runs out, pretty much is gonna be up for grabs, right? I would believe so at 36. We'll be 38 by that time. So I think that this is something that. This is like putting the other teams on notice, like, hey, we are interested in the quarterback. So if you want to trade up and we can still get our guy and pass rusher, maybe at 12 or 13, hey, we're open for business. I think that's more so of a sign of they're being, true enough. They're combing through the fine comb of things and trying to figure things out, what they want. But I really feel like this is a play that, lets all the other teams know that, hey, you know what? We might just take a quarterback. We might have some interest. So I think this is one of those things where they're looking to, gather some interest for teams looking to trade up for a quarterback.
How about you, Aaron? What do you think? Smoke and mirrors, or is there a scenario where the Falcons get Penix, just not at 8?
Yeah, I mean, yes to both questions. I think it's smoke, but at the same time, I think there is a scenario where the Falcons can get Penix probably in round 2 at pick 43. As you said, I don't think he's going to be there because I just think there's going to be enough demand for a quarterback that for the teams picking outside the top 10 that don't get their guy, wanting to move up. A team like the Raiders makes a ton of sense. They're picking 44, so it make a ton of sense to try to leapfrog a team like Atlanta at the top of round 2, or maybe even jumping back into round 1 for Penix. I think in terms of Penix being a top 10 pick, this is just sort of the classic. Every year we try to inflate how many quarterbacks are going to go early in the draft. And so everybody's like, there's going to be 6 quarterbacks in the first round. It's like, no, there's probably going to be 4. You're going to get 3 at the top. And the 4th guy, we'll see if JJ McCarthy goes in top 5 or he falls, further than people think. And then we'll see where Penix and Bo Nix go. But like, I just think a lot of this is just, people always think the quarterbacks are going to go high. And in the last couple of years, like, NFL teams haven't been as greedy for the quarterback position as they have historically. That we saw that in the 22 class where Malik Willis and Kenny Pickett and Desmond Ridder all were supposed to be first round picks. If you go back and listen to all the speculation the week of the draft, and then only one of those guys went in the first round, and the other guys fell all the way to round 3 and whatnot. So I think the Penix talk at 8 is smoke, but at the same time, I do think there is a scenario where if he is there at 43, if one of these other teams doesn't go up and get him earlier than that, like the Falcons will absolutely explore their options with that pick.
Yeah. And what about you, Tori? Smoke and mirrors, going to get Penix with another scenario, not called the 8th pick, or both?
Yeah, I know. I'm with both of these guys, exactly what they're saying. I think 8 is too high for him, but I don't know if he makes it to 43. So you kind of have to weigh how much you're willing to move in order to get him. And that's something that, I mean, I go back and forth on it sometimes. There's a part of me that would rather, if you're going to move, I don't know if I'd move for Michael Penix Jr., knowing that potentially if you do move, you pick up a future first round pick, or at least like future draft capital that you can turn into a future first round pick. So where you could go get potentially a premium quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks in 2025. I'm kind of thinking, trying to think 2 steps ahead here. But then there's also a realm where I think something that we're also not thinking of, even though the Falcons have kind of put a lot, the reports are that they, send a large contingency out to Washington. They've had all these meetings with Michael Penix Jr. Just because you do that now, I don't think necessarily means that you're going after someone right now. I think there have been a lot of instances over the course of the history of the league, especially recent history, where there's a player, regardless of position, that teams really, really fell in love with throughout the draft process, but weren't really willing to spend a pick on them. That doesn't mean in 2, 3, 4 years down the road, that like mutual love affair doesn't rekindle after a trade or free agency. I think this is a good opportunity for the Falcons to keep their options open, but I'm not entirely sold on the decision to take Michael Penix Jr. at number 8 overall. But then you gotta weigh all the, you're not going to know until you know. And that's the beauty of draft night.
Right. And that's a great call on the last point you made, Tori. I'll go kind of backwards to forwards and now in this scenario that I'm about to mention, it didn't necessarily work out in the favor, but the same scenario happened, meaning that the Falcons had the opportunity to select Justin Fields. Now they didn't, but here we are a couple years later and they had the opportunity to go after him again. So you do never know how things might turn around as far as the full circle piece. And I'm with you, Tori. I've been saying it. You've been saying it for a while now. Like, there is a nice class in 2025. There is a Shedeur Sanders. There is a Carson Beck. There is a Jalen Milroe. So there are opportunities that may come about in 2025. And then those guys have another year to get even stronger as quarterbacks. So I think that puts the Falcons in a good position, whether they go for Michael Penix Jr. in a scenario not named number 8. I agree with you guys in that regard. And it may be something to where that 8 becomes 12 or 13 or 14, and they get something where there's a scenario where maybe if they've got to trade back into the first round, it'll be something that's not high, that if you want to get a Michael Penix Jr., maybe some of the capital that I don't want you to take all your capital that you might get from drafting back, but you might have some that you could potentially use to get him at some point if you think that he's not going to be there in the second round. Now, going back to the first round, I want to refresh you guys' memories, especially because I heard you, Jarvis, on Sports Extra last night with your flipping self. So, yeah, I heard you.
I didn't hear.
Oh, yeah, Tori and Aaron, we're coming for him. Oh, yeah, we're coming for him.
I can explain.
You went with, and I quote, Dallas Turner when we did first rounds on Atlanta Football Party 2 weeks ago. You said, quote, there was some development needed, but that the ceiling was very, very high. So I say to you, JD, this is your opportunity. If you want to make that change at number 8, you can. Or are you going to say, nope, I'm going to stick with my original Dallas Turner? Remember, I heard you last night. Just keep that in mind.
So, I'm glad you asked this question, T, because I'm a man that is in tune with my emotions. And I, when it comes to
I never know where these are going.
Ever.
Me neither. I've done 50 podcasts with Jarvis, and I still don't know.
And you never, ever know.
But continue.
Right?
Yes.
As you were.
So, what I mean when I say that, Tori, I have gut feelings, right? Like, I'm real big on gut feelings.
You're a vibes guy.
Yes, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? That's kind of how I get down, So when I look at something and I see something, normally my first impression is right. I'm not saying I'm perfect, I'm 100%, you can ask my wife, I'm wrong a lot. But when I get that strong gut feeling, and I have a strong gut feeling that Latu is the pass rusher that the Falcons need. And you know what I'm saying? I'm real big on like, hey, if it's a couple picks higher than what you kind of have them positioned, so what? As long as you get that guy that can come in and be productive in that first year and be a guy that can come around and get you a second contract that you may have to pay him $20 million a year, that is totally fine with me. So yes, I had to change of heart, T. I tapped into my emotions. I tapped into my gut, and I said, you know what, Jarvis, you need to go with what your gut says. And my gut says that Leatu Latu is the pick that the Falcons need to have if they want to get that production that they need on third down. Yes.
Okay. Well, I think you made your case for Latu.
Thank you.
I think you made your case for him as well.
Feel
Now,
much better
Aaron,
now.
you have an
Wait,
opportunity. You
shit.
should hug. So, Aaron, you went with Dallas Turner too. Now, you said there are three guys at the top, but for you, quote, Turner has the highest ceiling of any edge rusher in this class. I also think the floor is not significantly lower than Jared Verse and Leatu Latu. So, would you like to keep your Dallas Turner pick, or would you like to flip? Because you've had a change of heart.
I'm going to keep the Dallas Turner pick, but I do feel like, shout out to our friends at FanDuel. They have Dallas Turner and Leatu Latu even money at this point to be the 8th overall selection. So I think there is a very real possibility where Latu is the pick at 8, but I'm going to roll with Dallas Turner for now, based off of what you just said, as I was quoted, 2 weeks ago.
What you trying to say, man?
Yeah. I love it, though. I appreciate that, Aaron.
Some people stick to their guns. I don't know.
Exactly. Some people stay consistent.
Yeah.
And they don't let their emotions tell them what to do. Tori,
Yeah.
You wanted to get a future first rounder, quote, move down in round 1 and potentially get a Jared Verse or any of the top corners like Terrion Arnold, Nate Wiggins, or Quinyon Mitchell. Do you want to stick with that option or that scenario, or do you want to make a change?
Yeah, I'm moving out of 8 totally. Like I am. I'm ready to pick up future draft capital. I'm ready to move around that draft board. I'm ready to have an opportunity to potentially get back into the first round if need be. And the way to do that is to move out of 8. And I don't think you have to move very far out of 8. I think that you could potentially get something from the Broncos or the Raiders at and have them move up in hopes that but the Vikings don't move up. Like there's always these mental games that are being played because the Broncos and the Raiders, if they want, I think JJ McCarthy, they're going to have to jump the Vikings.
Yep.
So if we get to pick number 5, pick number 6, and the Vikings haven't moved up at all, I mean, I think that there could be some real competition to get there at number 8, which is really good idea for the Falcons to move down and get some more draft capital in the draft itself at this year or future draft capital, which is what I would be trying to move. But for me, that's where I'm at. I really like Terrion Arnold. I really like Quinyon Mitchell. I like these corners. Leatu Latu, like to just put him out there too. Jared Verse. I think you have, because of the nature of this draft, knowing that there's going to be a run on quarterbacks, a run on receivers, and potentially a run on offensive tackles very, very early, you're seeing so many, almost all of the top defensive prospects fall out of the top 10, which is good news for the Falcons because that's what they need. It's an opportunity for need and, best player available to kind of meet head on if you're the Falcons.
And I think there's also a question of whether or not when we talk about that generational edge rusher or pass rusher, most pundits say that neither of these 3 guys is that guy, that generational guy. So I'm wondering, okay, you've got those 3, but then there's that, how we talk about the quarterback and the receiver and that second wave of them. I wonder if there's that second wave, like how much of a gap is there between the first wave of pass rushers and the second wave of pass rushers? Same for corner, first wave of corner, second wave of corner, such that I agree that the Falcons could trade back, get some more assets, but still get a quality pass rusher or quality DB in this particular draft. We shall see. When we come back, it's the final rounds of making the case for mock drafts in the deep dive. This episode of the Atlanta Football Party is brought to you by FanDuel and Monopoly Go. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks. And even like our guy Aaron Freeman said, now you've got those, I guess they pulled even, if you will, Latu and Turner. That could be an opportunity for you to make a little dough as well. So it's all in the app. It's safe, it's secure, and it is easy to use. So what are you waiting for? You got to do it in a couple of days because, of course, the draft is on Thursday, if that's the way you'd like to go after getting some extra money from FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. This episode of our Atlanta Football Party is also brought to you by Monopoly Go. So I've been told I'm a competitive person. I think you could actually say that about our whole show, but if you think it's true, it is true. So that competitive side that we all have is also a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it because it's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play on not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part is you can have a little fun with your friends. You can charge them rent on iconic properties, just like classic Monopoly. Now you can rob their vaults of riches for yourself, and the leaderboards show who the biggest tycoon is. But it's not just competitive sides that love it. It's friends and people all around the world that you can team up with to earn huge rewards. So get in the game, download Monopoly Go. It's free on the App Store or Google Play. All right, guys. So we have our final rounds of our mock draft. We went through 1 through 3 in the past couple of weeks. Now we've got rounds 4, 5, 6, and 7. You guys can do what it is that you want, whether you stand pat, whether you want to move around. I just want to know exactly what we do and what we still consider the opportunity for the Falcons to get some good players in those late rounds. So Aaron, where would you go? Where do you want to go or see the Falcons go in round 4?
Yeah, I have the Falcons taking a tackle, getting some depth along the offensive line. We saw that was an issue last year, late in the season with several injuries up there. And, Christian Jones out of Texas is the guy I have the Falcons projected to pick in round 4. Had a really good Senior Bowl week going against some really high-level pass rushers. And obviously the Falcons saw quite a bit of him, 2 years ago when they were watching Bijan Robinson at Texas and him clearing those run lanes. And then round 5, I got the Falcons getting a quarterback, right? Joe Milton out of Tennessee, the big arm guy, Bazooka Joe, as some people call him because of the cannon attached to his shoulder. And Milton is big arm, big athletic, didn't play a ton at Michigan and then transferred to Tennessee and finally got on the field this past year. And he's a guy that I think has tools, but is raw, just needs reps. But he's kind of that perfect candidate, I think, especially if you're waiting till round or day 3 to get a quarterback, to just kind of stash as a third string quarterback, let him, sit behind Kirk Cousins and Taylor Heineke and just sort of absorb what they're doing in the quarterback room. And then, a couple of years from now, maybe he can sort of jump up to be that number 2. And then, there's a chance that, he could be in the Falcons' plans for the starting quarterback in the future. Just give you another option there to sort of develop there. And then to finish off in round 6, got the Falcons shoring up their front 7, D tackle Christian Boyd out of Northern Iowa, a nice, big physical nose tackle that they can plug in the middle of that D line, and got to get one of Jimmy Lake's guys from Washington with that last pick. And I'm going to butcher this name, but Edefuan Ulifoshio, the linebacker from Washington, give some depth there, some athleticism, some speed, can play on special teams, that sort of thing.
Honestly, great pronunciation.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought you did a fine job.
Yeah.
And you did a fine job on pronunciations and also kind of addressing some needs that the Falcons have that are maybe not as pressing as the needs that they'll go after for those first 3 rounds. But nonetheless, we saw how players in the late rounds have always actually been a strong suit of the Falcons to be able to get something solid out of them, going back as far as Grady Jarrett and coming up as close as DeMarco Hellum. So I think definitely good job, Tori. What about you? Where do you kind of see the Falcons maybe shoring up some areas that are maybe not on their top list of needs, but are still maybe some needs?
Yeah, so I'm actually looking at my 7-round mock draft that I published last week for AtlantaFalcons.com, and I didn't realize how much movement I had, and I was moving all over that draft board. But I ended up, this is where just to give y'all where my mind's at. I had a trade with the Broncos, and so the Falcons got a number 12 pick. I had a trade with the Cardinals where they moved up to number 35 in the second round. And then they stuck with their number 74 third-round pick, but they traded away their other third-round pick in order to move up in the second, kind of like what they did for Matthew Bergeron last year. And then I had a trade to get back into the fourth round with the Jaguars, and I had to give up their their 6th and 7th round, or whatever, their 6th and 6th or 6th and 7th round pick in order to get back into the fourth. So all of that to say, I had them taking a wide receiver in the 4th round. I really like this Baker guy from UCF. I thought that he was somebody who, at that point in time, which I was picking at number 116, which was the Jaguars' 2nd 4th round pick, I really liked the idea of getting a receiver because previously I'd gotten an edge, I'd gotten a corner, I'd gotten a D tackle in the first 3 rounds. And I felt good about what those positions could do in terms of depth, and also really kind of highlighting the need to what Jarvis was saying at D tackle with depth, and, still kind of using a 2nd round pick to get a cornerback that could go and potentially earn a starting role, probably earn a starting role. But so when you get down to the 4th round, I was like, I could go either way. But when I was really looking at the depth of the wide receiver class, there were some really good receivers that were still there hypothetically in the 4th round. And I still think that the Falcons could use some more bodies in that wide receiver room, especially when you think about long-term health of the position. I know you have Drake London there, but some of these guys that they picked up in free agency aren't here for a very, very long time. So getting premium positions like wide receiver, expensive positions under a rookie contract, as we've seen with Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, in those positions, I think matters. So that's where I went. And I only had, that was my last pick. So I actually didn't even get into 5th round, 6th round, 7th round, because I'd done so much manipulation to get exactly who I wanted in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th.
Yeah. But I like it because when we were talking about the run of the 2nd round of wide receivers, this gives you an opportunity to get in on maybe that 2nd/3rd run of them, but still get yourself a quality receiver for the Falcons. And to your point, you never know who can compete for maybe that 2nd spot. If Drake's your wide receiver 1, I don't think there's any far and away wide receiver 2 that they currently have on the roster. So who says that you can't go out and get a wide receiver 2 in the draft? You just never know, especially when we think about some of the things we saw with the Rams and even the Lions last year with some of their late round pickups. What about you, Jarvis? Where'd you go in those final rounds?
So I will start off in the 4th round with Johnny Wilson, the wide receiver out of Florida State, the 6'6", 230 pounds. Obviously has a lot of size and good long speed. Some of those guys aren't as fluid when you're coming in and out of routes and stuff like that. So that's kind of given his size and stature. But I feel like he'll be a guy that it wouldn't be any pressure for him to come in and start, obviously. But I think he's a guy that can potentially work his way in like a mid-round draft pick should be able to. And I think that was definitely some value there. 5th round, I got Tyke Smith, safety, special teams guy, a guy who can kind of do it all, kind of fill in. He can play in the slot, play safety. So, we understand what the Falcons want to do when we talk about versatility on defense. So I feel he'll be a good fit there. And then in the 6th round, I picked up a guy, Jarvis Brownlee. No relation. Aaron, why you be looking at me like that, man?
I don't know what you're talking about, man. I'm just on camera doing nothing.
but seriously though, I think Jarvis Brownlee was a guy that kind of popped out for me down at the Senior Bowl and one-on-ones. He was a guy that was really going out there to compete. And then when you're picking this late in the draft, you're looking for guys that can make the team via special teams, and then eventually, hopefully, they can give you something on defense, and I think he'll be the perfect candidate for that. And last but not least, in the 2nd pick of the 6th round, I went with Tip Drummond. He was a guy that had a 30 visit with the Falcons, and so it would be good. It would behoove them to go and get a little depth at that tight end position as well. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Good thought. Good thought. And I tell you, whether we go with either any of those three scenarios or whether we go with a hybrid mix of those three scenarios, what I love about it is you guys absolutely looked at that second layer of needs that the Falcons have and try to address them in some creative ways. So we get to see how that looks this weekend. Now, did Kirk Chains nail it or no? We'll talk about it in What's Next. This episode of the Atlanta Football Party is brought to you by Game Time. Now, Game Time is an authorized marketplace of Major League Baseball. That's new for them, and that makes getting tickets even faster and easier for you. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. And really, that's even as close to the start time of a concert or a play or anything, because I know for me, sometimes I'll play that game of getting a ticket last minute, and it definitely works on Game Time. They've got killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guaranteed. They also have priority last minute deals. You can save up to 60% off buying last minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Also, they have flash deals where you can save with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event, and a low price guarantee where Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find a lower priced ticket. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but go ahead and download the app, create an account, and redeem code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download that Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Okay, guys, so Kirk Cousins had his blooper chain on. I guess he was going for the whole Kirko chains thing last night when he threw out the first pitch for the Braves. I thought he nailed it. I thought he had a nice first pitch based on what I've seen some other celebrities and even like athletes from different sports do. I mean, Tori, what did you think about his first pitch?
That was great. I loved it. I mean, it was honestly, so we're calling this weekend of Kirk Cousins Kirkapalooza because he was at the Atlanta United game.
Yeah.
He did the spike, and then he was at the Braves game throughout the first pitch. The week before, he was at the Masters. So he's like catching every single big time Atlanta sports event that you can in April. So it's Kirkapalooza or Kirkageddon if you really want to get in there.
This is where we are now.
Don't say Jarvis. You can't say anything. You can't say anything
at all.
So I thought it was great. I thought it's cool that he's getting out in the community, and by community, like the sports community. And I think he genuinely is an Atlanta sports fan. He really is. And I mean, he's lived in Atlanta for a while, spent off seasons here. He's gone. It's not like he hasn't gone to these things already in his own personal life. So to actually see him kind of with the Atlanta United stuff on, with the Braves stuff on, it was a nice way, I think, to connect these organizations and franchises. I always love it. I always enjoy it. And also it was really cool seeing all of the players that sat with Kirk in the by the field, because I don't know how many of them have actually seen like a true soccer game in that stadium. Because they go and play in that stadium almost every single Sunday, but to experience it as a fan probably gave them a different type of look and feel about playing at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which I think is probably really neat.
That is cool. And Aaron, I don't think that's an experience you can have in Minnesota in April, being able to get out on the greens for the Masters. And the weather was up and down, but it's still something that you cannot do in Minnesota. And then to Tori's point, being able to go from United to the Braves being an outdoor event, the stadium literally could have even been opened on Saturday. Those are just things that are kind of uniquely Atlanta.
Yeah, I think the only thing you can probably do in Minnesota in April is maybe playoff hockey. I don't know if the Minnesota hockey team is good enough to be a playoff team, but check out Locked On NHL or whatever for that. But maybe that's something. I know our friend Maria Martin has been pushing hard for hockey to return to Atlanta, so that may be another thing that we can add to Kirkapalooza 2025, I guess, maybe in the future.
What about you, Jarvis? Did you like the rounds that Kirk made? Kirkapalooza, Kirkageddon, Chains, all of it. Just all of it.
Listen up, Kirkwood. All right. So
Oh God.
yeah, Kirkwood. Yeah. So I'm in a space now where I'm ready for Kirk to start throwing touchdowns.
Mhm.
So all the little paraded and the PR and all that stuff, that's all
He's
cool.
coming off of an Achilles injury, Jarvis.
Right. Give him a break, man.
I'm ready for the man to throw some. So
He
can I get an
still
update on
has-
some rehab?
He still
Tori?
has months and months before he can before he's even out on the field for training
Tell me,
camp.
Tori, can I get
You
some
want him to
update
go?
on some rehabs?
You want him to go
Is he
throw a
good?
pass? You want him to go throw a pass at the Atlanta United match just to show that he can?
Yes,
Okay.
that's where I'm at.
Okay.
Look, my birthday is coming up on July 25th. Most of the teams are reporting by that time. So I can have an injury update. I'm ready to be on this date. I'm
Well,
going to be
honestly,
ready to throw footballs. Like, I need that by my birthday. Like, I'm cool on the parade, PR stuff. Like, you don't have to ingratiate yourself with the city. I don't care. Can you play? that's where I am with
The
it.
season is still months away.
Right.
Let the man have
I
some
know.
fun.
But Tori, I've been watching inept offenses for the past 3 years,
Look,
4,
I get
5,
it.
6 years.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Yeah,
I'm like,
it's the
You
build
have
up, the anticipation is there, but
It's
yeah.
April
we
22nd.
ain't
Yeah,
criminal.
you
We ain't
have so
criminal.
much time. You're gonna get to see. I promise you that you'll probably get to see something. We have OTAs coming up. What are you watching right now?
Right.
What are you watching right now?
Right.
I don't know. I'm just being
Basketball.
grumpy. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe
Like,
some NBA, but yeah. Well, I just like the fact that he didn't wear mom jeans. I thought, the skinny jeans that he had on were a good look. With, I thought he had a nice look. So I was just proud of him for looking like a cool dad as opposed to looking like, I don't know. It took me back to like Obama with the mom jeans. But anyway, that said, I was just happy that he looked fly. Speaking of fly, there are, and I will be quick with this one, but there are times when you can be that guy, so fly, so fierce, so bold, that you can kind of carve a niche for yourself and attempt to carve a niche for your children too. And this story is what Deion Sanders tried to do. He said on a recent podcast that he has selected 5 teams that he would be comfortable with Shedeur Sanders going to, Travis Hunter going to, and Shiloh Sanders going to, right? And at the top of that list, the Atlanta Falcons. He wants to see both of them, assuming in his mock draft for 2025 that Shedeur is going to go 1, Travis is going to go 2. And yeah, he's going to literally dictate that they come here because he felt like, and the other places were places that he played, like Baltimore, Dallas, San Fran, if you will. But he felt like this city had the most culture and the most influence on him and thought it'd be a good place for his kids and his adopted kid to land. But does he have that kind of juice? I mean, or would you, we talked about the 2025 class.
No. Deion has a ton of control, I'm sure, but like, no. I'm sorry, I'm in a mood. I haven't had my second coffee today.
Tori's coming for everybody's throats.
Okay, yeah.
Yes,
exactly. No,
she jumped on mine first. Now she on Prime. I'm glad she off me.
I mean, I think it'll be super entertaining if like he, does his own mock drafts. Like I would love that if we can sponsor that here at AtlantaFalcons.com and we get Deion Sanders mock draft 2025. I'm down for that.
Yeah.
Do I think that matters at all to what will happen in the actual 2025 NFL draft? No.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what kind of influence he has because he's like, I'm doing my Eli thing. But Jarvis, do you think he'll be able to dictate that Shedeur or Travis, well, he said and Travis, but that they'll be Atlanta Falcons next year?
I'll take it one step further than Tori. Hell no. They're going down like that, please. And if the Falcons are picking number 1 overall, oh my gosh, we're going to be having some real conversations. You talking about some anxious to me, being anxious? Oh my God. Like Raheem Morris better start. He got a lot of work to do if the Falcons are picking number 1 overall next year. So yeah, I don't think Prime got that type of power, but I'm I'm cool with him coming out and saying it. You know, I love
Oh
him.
yeah, say as much as you want to.
Say what. Yeah, exactly. Be bold. But yeah, that was my first thought too. Like, if we're talking about the Falcons at 1 or 4, something went horribly wrong.
Unless they traded up.
I just don't
Unless
see
they
it.
get.
Yeah,
Unless
unless
they traded
right.
up.
But then that
Choice
means
box.
that, right.
Yeah, you
But
have plenty
then that
picks.
would mean then that would mean that they gave the world up.
But did they though?
I hope so, because if they did it, that means that they're going to still be picking in the top 10, and this will be an awful, awful conversation to have for what, the 4th year in a row. Now I'm going to say hell no to that. All right, Aaron, we'll let you close us out and bring us, back, get us back on the rails.
Look, there's nothing like Deion can say what he wants to say, and the NFL is going to do what the NFL is going to do, and it's going to be entertaining. That, like Tori and Jarvis said, Deion, talk as much as you want over the next year, because it ain't going to matter ultimately to the 32 NFL GMs. So I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yes.
Whether it actually happens in reality, I think is more of a pipe dream, more an imagination type of thing. But we'll see. It's going to be entertaining.
Well, we know Deion lives in a different world in his head, so we definitely understand that. Thanks for stopping by the Atlanta Football Party, your home for the best Atlanta Falcons football talk. Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, because we'll give you some kicks and giggles, and we're free and available wherever you download your podcast. But we're also going to give you the real, and we'll give you the real tomorrow when you stop by the Atlanta Football Party, the Dogs edition.